If you've played a WWE game in the past 20 years or so, there's a pretty good chance that game was made by Yukes, a streak I don't think will ever be matched. Almost 20 years and 26 WWE games. And because Yukes is no longer officially working on WWE games, I thought it's a good time to make a tier list on what I think are the good ones, what I think are the bad ones, and rank them all down. What's good, Internet? My name is attackslug, and this is my list. My tier ranking of Yukes, and only Yukes, WWE games. Every single one of these games has had video on this channel, sometimes a lot of video on this channel. Links down in the description, a lot of links. And if you disagree or agree with my grades for these games, feel free to argue down in the comments below. So without further ado, I have 26 games to get through. Let's begin. Number 1 being WWF Smackdown, released in the year 2000 on the original PlayStation, and I will tell you that this game, I came off of playing all those N64 wrestlers. Even though at the time I was not a fan of WCW, I was playing WCW on the N64, and it was amazing. So to go from that gameplay to Smackdown, super arcadey, super fast gameplay, I was not feeling it. And on that note, I'll give Smackdown a D. These days, I can somewhat appreciate what they were going for, but at the time, I was super salty it wasn't playing like the games on N64. Also, in the year 2000, WWF Royal Rumble on the Dreamcast. This game had 9 wrestlers in the ring at the same time, which is amazing. Has not been done since, right? But here's the problem. It was a Royal Rumble game, and as a wrestling fan, you know, it is a 30-man, over-the-top battle royal. This game had 21 characters. F. How could you get the most basic thing wrong? Also in the year 2000, that's right, 3 games in the year 2000, we have SmackDown 2, Know Your Role. So you started out the year with the original SmackDown, and then later on in the year, you had SmackDown 2. Man, Yukes can just crank them out. And I did enjoy this game more than the first one. Only because they added so much more. It had a better season mode, it had Hell in a Cell, it had casket matches. So SmackDown 2, I'm gonna give a solid C. Then there was a generation transition to the PS2, and your first PS2 game was SmackDown Just Bring It in the year 2001. This introduced things like commentary. It had proper entrances, and it had 8-man matches, which you would not see again until 2K18. But that being said, I am always a huge fan of the single-player season mode content, and the season mode in this game was criminally short, like 4 matches, you were done, so again, C. And then in 2002, heading over to the GameCube for WrestleMania X8, aka 18. And this was an okay start for their GameCube stuff, which did get a lot better down the line, but their beginning here pretty much had no season single-player content. It was Path of a Champion and Battle for the Belts, which both of which was just, alright, have some matches, you had your matches, you're done, alright. So X8 gets a D. Also in 2002, SmackDown Shut Your Mouth for the PS2 was released, and now we're getting cooking. You could fight on the fist for the first time and the last time. Fight on the fist. That was awesome. The season mode had branching story paths. You had free roam in the backstage area. And while I think anytime they do free roam in backstage, it is kind of tedious, it was better here than it was in the later releases, because it felt more unpredictable. So Shut Your Mouth, I'm gonna give a B. Then we go back to the GameCube for WrestleMania 19 in 2003, and this game had one of the weirdest modes in a WWE game I've ever played, ever, in the revenge mode. You went around murdering construction workers. What was this mode? Just for that alone, I'm gonna go up to a C, because you did something here. I'm not sure what the hell you did, and it was never seen again, but you definitely did something here. Also in 2003, boy, oh boy, oh boy, here comes the pain. Here comes the pain. Come on, you know this is S tier. Easy. It's like they sat down and said, alright, The things we've done, how can they be more fun? How can we cram in the most amount of ridiculous fun into a wrestling game? And Here Comes the Pain exemplifies that in spades. You can do elbow drops off a helicopter. And the season mode solved the whole thing with not having free roam, but giving you options. Here's a bunch of different rooms. The boiler room, the ring, the office, etc., etc., and there might be somebody there, there might not. It felt different every time, and you could have a fight, you could have an alliance. It felt organic, and it felt unpredictable. This is a game I could play right now and have a blast. 2004 on the GameCube brought us Day of Reckoning, and this game, I think, more than any other game that I've heard this line trotted out for again and again and again and again, that, oh man, they solved it. It's gonna be like No Mercy. Every single wrestling game in I don't know how many years, if you read the preview on IGN, oh, they solved it. It's gonna be like No Mercy. And then you bought it, and they weren't. They didn't get it. They didn't get it. But Day of Reckoning got the closest. So just on that alone, I give it a B. Also in 2004, the first edition of WWE SmackDown vs. Raw on the PS2. And I like this game a lot, but trying to be the follow-up to Here Comes the Pain, it does fall flat in a number of ways, mainly because the thing with Here Comes the Pain in that season, what made it so interesting and dynamic was the fact that they did not have voice acting. So you could put anybody with the text and make it work. So SmackDown vs. Raw introduced voice acting in the season, so it was the same every time, and it was kind of short and whatever. Now I still give the game an A, because I still did enjoy it quite a bit, and it still did have a lot of the parts that I did like from Here Comes the Pain, but that's a real tough mountain to climb. Also in 04 on the GameCube side was Day of Reckoning 2, and much like the original, I'm going to give that a B. It still had that lineage, I still enjoyed their season mode, and it still almost got there for No Mercy. Obviously not quite, but it was, at the time, good enough. Unfortunately, that was the last Yukes game on the GameCube for WWE, so that lineage did not continue. After that, it was time for SVR 2006, and to be clear, I'm judging the best console version of these games. So I'm not looking at the PSP version, I'm not looking at the DS version, it's alright. This was on PS2, that was the version. And again, I enjoyed the season mode in this game, but what gets this game in A is the inclusion for the first time of the GM mode. That's an automatic A, easy. Which brings us immediately to SVR 2007, which was on 360, PS2, and PSP. Obviously, 360 was the version to get. That was the transition to a new console generation, and this time, unlike with, say, 2K15, they nailed that transition. The version on 360, I'll put that at an S rank. You could pick either the Raw or SmackDown side for that season mode. It had branching paths depending on if you were champion or not champion. It had a multitude of stories. It had GM mode once again. You could fight in the crowd. What is there not to like about 07? And so you might think, hey man, we're at an all-time high. We're doing great. A few missteps, we're totally nailing it. How can you possibly follow that up? And then you get to SVR 2008, and what did you do? You made the GM mode a little bit more convoluted with the inclusion of a third brand, ECW. You had different fighting style categories. When you made your own guy, you had to choose, a brawler or a high flyer, and had to choose two of those fighting styles. You couldn't really just have the moves you wanted to have on your guy. And most damningly, it was the 24/7 mode as your season mode. Man, that was just not fun. So that drops you down to a C for 08. SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, however, was like, you know what? That mode was not good. Nobody liked it. Let's bring out the road to WrestleMania. Let's tell like 5 or 6 different stories in our season modes. Not just one story. Different superstars had their own weird and wacky and wild stories, and I love that stuff. You also had the ridiculous inclusion of the creative finisher. So on those merits alone, that game gets a B. Moving into 2009, we had 2 wrestling games, the first of which being the Legends of WrestleMania on the 360 and the PS3, and everything here in the presentation, in all these classic superstars, in being able to import your SVR 09 characters into that, making it an even bigger roster, was fantastic. I just wish I liked playing that game. I didn't like the controls of that game at all. And if you don't like the controls and you don't like playing the game, then you're not gonna want to keep playing the game. I give it a C. Which brings us to the other game in 09, which is SVR 2010. And again, brought back the Road to WrestleMania. Some great stories here. The ending of your character's story, with Vince doing the chicken dance in the chicken costume, is a top 10 moment of all time in those season modes. But also this game had a story designer function, and I ain't gotta tell you, that makes for some great times here on the YouTube. So 2010 gets a B. SVR 2011 continued those shenanigans. You had the spooky Taker or WrestleMania stuff, which was fantastic. You had the introduction of Universe Mode, and so again, I give that one a B. But that, my friends, is the end of the SmackDown vs. Raw branding, which brings us to WWE 12. And that game was fine, like gameplay-wise. It had their Predator tech or whatever, but I felt like following up those bunch of good years of the WrestleMania stuff, going into this whole thing with the villain, the hero, and then the outsider thing, just kind of, it wasn't enough for me, so 12 gets a C. But also, that's the end of that particular feature in the Road to WrestleMania. Kind of didn't end on a great note, for me anyway, but it was okay. So what do? The next year, you embrace the Attitude Era. It is the beginning of what they call their showcase stuff, showcasing these historical moments in the pantheon of wrestling history. And as someone who watched all that stuff originally, I do like playing those matches, and I did like this game engine. I did enjoy what I played of 13, so I'm gonna give it a B. And that brings us to what was the last game, technically, under THQ, when they went under and became the first game under 2K, which is 2K14. The most feature-rich game they did for a long time after that was 2K14. So you had tons of great features. You had the 30 years of WrestleMania stuff. You had the Beat the Streak. You still had Create a Story. 2K14 should have further been iterated on, but they didn't. I'll give that game an A, which immediately brings us to the biggest whiplash effect in this video, and that is 2K15. The first game on the PS4 and the Xbox One. And earlier I said, man, when they went from 06 to 07, first game on the 360, they nailed it. But here you had this new, more simulation-style engine on PS4, Xbox One. The My Career sucked. It was just not fun to play. The amount of options you had was bare bones. So many missing match types. So much stuff you would have wanted in a game that was just not there. 2K15 gets an E. Just, nah. I'm good. And at the time, a lot of folks gave them the benefit of the doubt. Hey, they're making this transition. They're going to add a bunch more stuff. Don't you worry. They'll get you next year. And next year was 2K16. And I did like all of the Austin showcase stuff. I liked their DLC showcase stuff. I liked additions like being able to do a run-in and that kind of thing. And they expanded on the My Career, but it still sucked. I spent 224 videos on this channel playing that My Career to finish that My Career. It was a grind. It had the authority goals. It was just not fun. Bring back a real story. Don't make me grind out matches. That game gets a D. Just for the Austin stuff. Just get a little bit better, but not a whole lot. And that brings us to 2K17, which honestly is more of the same. They got rid of the showcases. The one thing I would have given a bump for, they got rid of. They added a promo engine into My Career, which was mostly broken. They said, we're gonna get rid of showcases to improve the My Career, and it gave you the Heyman goals, which were very similar to the authority goals from the year before. That one took me 168 videos until the game finally broke, and I couldn't even finish the My Career. That gets an E. Don't tell me you're gonna cut a mode to make improvements and then don't really do that. Come on. Then we had 2K18, which heralded the return of the 8-man matches for the first time since Just Bring It. And you better hope you had a PS4 Pro or an Xbox One X, because those matches on the base consoles ran like garbage. We also had the return of backstage free roam, which is a blessing and a curse, because again, it's just still kind of boring. Just do it like Here Comes the Pain. That worked. Do that again. Come on. And they gave you an actual story in your My Career. Wasn't a good story, but it was an actual story with a start, a middle, and an end, not just grinding matches for no reason forever and ever and ever. But the biggest thing to ding that story is the inclusion of loot boxes, and you guys know my feelings on loot boxes in this kind of game. I don't want them. But you made enough other improvements, I'm gonna give it a C. And that brings us to the final Yukes WWE game, and that is 2K19, and they brought back a proper career season that felt like a road to WrestleMania. Cutscenes, voice acting, a fun story to follow, good times. They tried to further embrace the fun in this game. They gave you a big head mode. They made things more ridiculous. I love that. And granted, if you don't like the gameplay, you're still not gonna like the gameplay. If you've noticed the tons of bugs and glitches in previous games, a lot of those are still in this game. And as long as 2K, even without Yukes, still uses that engine, a lot of those are still gonna be in those games. But Yukes is free. You're set free, Yukes, to make your own wrestling game with your own tech, and I'm looking forward to that a whole lot. But your final effort, which was 2K19, I'm gonna give it a B. Even having your stupid loot boxes in your My Career, which I'm sure was mandated by 2K, I still had a good time. So you ended on a pretty good note. But that's it for this video. That's it for my voice. That's it for my list. So feel free to argue in the comments below on if that was accurate at all. That's just my feelings and my list. I'm attackslug. Thanks for watching. More videos on this channel just about every day. Mostly. I'll see you next time, and I'm out.